welcome to another one of our amazing Headline Books author sessions. Today, we are going to be chatting with Don McLeod with guest interviewer Burke Allen. If any of you have questions for our presenter, feel free to type them into the chat underneath this video, and we will get to as many questions as possible towards the end. And if you have to leave and you can't catch the end of the video, it's no problem because you can watch the replay here on our Facebook page. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to our guest interviewer, Burke Allen from Allen Media Strategies. Thanks so much for being with us, both of you.
Hey, thanks, Ashley. Hey, everybody. I'm Burke Allen with the Blog Talk Radio Network's Big Time Talker podcast, and we're simulcasting today with our friends at Headline Books and their Christmas and holiday book extravaganza. And I love to talk to people about movies and TV and the entertainment business. And today we're going to talk to somebody who may possibly be the biggest entertainer I've ever interviewed that you've never heard of. His name is Don McLeod, and I guarantee you, you've seen Don on television in a movie, but you may not know him by name because many times he's behind a mask that you see if you're watching over your shoulder there, Don. Hey, how are you?
I'm very good, Burke. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. You have a brand new book called Gorilla Tales. It's just hitting the stores in time for the holidays, and it's all about this time you spent inside this amazing gorilla costume that has led you down this unusual path in Hollywood. But before you were a Hollywood bigwig, you had to start somewhere. So let's go all the way back. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little town called Elk, California. It had two names. It was so small, the town. We only had 90 people. And then it had a second name, Greenwood. And it still maintains those two names. And then a few years later, I moved to the metropolis of Manchester, California, which had 250 people.
You're a small town guy.
Yeah, small town. So my folks had a little farm off on the side of the road, about a couple miles from the actual town. So that was where I really got my start in life, not in anything to do with movies. So I think
what part of the state of California is your town with two names in?
Yes, it was. I was a Canadian by birth, but my parents moved to California, where my mom taught school and my dad worked various like lumber mill jobs and so forth.
What were you into when you were in school? Were you into theater and that sort of thing? Were you into sports? What did you do as a kid?
Well, I got my first start was I was a sugar plum in the Christmas pageant that my mother directed. And I had a little dance that we did, and unfortunately the sugar plum and the candy cane got hooked up, connected in costume wise, and it got a huge laugh. And that's when I first discovered, gosh, you know, maybe there's something to this showbiz stuff here. I was in the first grade, and I think from then on I was pretty much bitten by the make them laugh bug. So
you got it early. And so were you in the typical high school theater productions and that sort of thing?
Yes, I was a four-sport athlete, and I was kind of a big deal in a very small high school, and I thought it was simple to succeed in show business. So I got the lead in two plays. I played Scrooge in The Christmas Carol, and you know, that was obviously pretty awful because I was like a 16-year-old trying to be Scrooge.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not an automatic path to the head cheerleader's heart right there, I don't think.
No, it wasn't, but I was a captain of most of the sports teams, so there was a connection there too, and I tried to do everything, I think, and I thought it was possible to do everything until I hit Los Angeles years later and found out it wasn't possible to do everything.
Well, you've done an awful lot, and if you're just joining us, Don McLeod is our guest today. His brand new memoir is Gorilla Tales, and we'll tell you why in just a couple of minutes. So when you left that small town and you moved to Los Angeles, was it with the express desire to be in the entertainment business, in the movie business? I know you were a mime at one point, a professional mime.
Yes, that came later. In high school, I had a drama teacher named Anthony Bernard who used to do the Ramona pageant, which is a yearly big pageant done in Inland Empire in Los Angeles area. And he discovered Raquel Welch in that pageant. So, and then he moved downward in his career to teach drama at my high school, which was Point Arena High School in Mendocino County. And he encouraged me. I said, gee, I'd like to look at this. I'm kind of still interested. I want to be a baseball player, and I did real well. But I said, I'm really interested in this theater stuff. So he got me an audition for the Pasadena Playhouse, and I did well at the audition and was accepted. And so the next year after high school, I enrolled in Pasadena Playhouse, which was a predominantly well-known acting school with Sally Struthers from All in the Family was there, and lots of other notable people. And I was a struggling actor beginning, but that's where I really started.
Did you at any point early on think, you know, I because you were a star athlete, right? You were, as you said, a big deal in a small town. Do you think, you know, I've got leading man material, and, you know, I'm going to be the next, whatever the equivalent was back then, Burt Reynolds, because clearly your career took a different path? Or at that point, were you just happy to do whatever you could do to be in show business?
Yes, I was just interested in, I wanted to be an actor mainly on stage. I didn't really think about film and television so much. I mainly wanted to do more plays, and I didn't really have, I wasn't said I've got to be a star. I just wanted to do the work. And what happened was I transferred from Pasadena Playhouse to a School of Performing Arts in San Diego. It was a 4-year theater school. And when I got there, I first got interested in mime through a mime class. And that opened me up to, oh, there's another option besides the Shakespeare plays I did in the, you know, the typical things an actor would study in theater school. I specialized in mime, and they didn't really have a division where they said you can do that. I just self-proclaimed myself a mime major. And that got me into a lot of different areas. And I think my athletic background really helped too with mime, because it gave me the opportunity to be both physical and study theater, and then combine those two, because they were kind of separate worlds. The jock said, oh, what are you doing trying to do plays? And still in college for 1 year I was on the baseball team, and they kind of thought, yeah, what are you, Sissy McLeod, what are you doing all those plays for and putting makeup on? And then the theater people thought, what are you hanging around all those jocks for? And I had a split personality, because I was like 50-50 all through high school with the jocks and with the I guess you would call them nerds, the theater nerds. And so
the book is from Don McLeod. He's our guest today. Gorilla Tales, a memoir, My Life as a Professional Primate. If you have any questions, or you want to just check in and say hi to Don, then send us a message in our Zoom room, chat room, and we'll ask those questions as we get into the conversation with Don here. Guarantee you've seen Don on TV or in a movie at some point along the way. All right, so you're at the Pasadena Playhouse. That's kind of a big deal for a young guy, and then you get involved in learning mime, and you actually studied mime under, I guess, arguably the most famous mime of all time. Were you intimidated by Marcel Marceau, or was it one of these things where, you know, you're a kid and you've got all this bravado, and he's just a guy with white stuff on his face?
You kind of got it pretty much right. I was a little bit intimidated, but I thought the world's my oyster, and I'm going to pry it open. And I literally pried open the screen the first time I saw Marcel Marceau, the stage screen that came down at the end, and I crawled under it. And I wanted to meet him. And I had a teacher who knew him quite well in theater school, and he gave me an introductory letter. And Marcel was going, no, there is no time to talk. I said, no, who are you? And I went, oh, please, wait, I'm Chucky Mate. She was actually a female mime teacher at my San Diego theater school. So I gave him this note, and he looked, and he said, you know the Chucky? I said, yeah. I said, oui. And that's how I met Marceau. And then he said, come tomorrow and do a little audition for me before my matinee show on I think it was Sunday or Saturday, I forget the day. But I went to the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles and met him early. And he said, all right, show me some of the stuff you call mime. And he kind of folded his arms and looked very disdainfully at me. And so I jumped out and I picked a flower, went, and Marcel went, no, this is not how you do it. And he said, he showed me basically, he said, you need to break down each moment. You seize the flower. And he said, first you seize the flower, and then you seize the beautiful girl. And then you reach for the flower and gently pluck it out of the ground and becomes the fragrance of the flower. And then you sniff it again and you give it to the beautiful girl and put it in her hair. Then you grab her arm and you kiss her arm, and voila, the beautiful girl and your inner emotion becomes one. And he said, what I did was, he said, you yanked the flower out of the ground and inhaled it up your nostril, and it was over in 2 seconds. He said, no, fill in these motions. I thought, aha, I get it. And I was a very loud mime too, because I had a rock band that was a combination Genesis and Emerson, Lake and Palmer kind of band, and I was the silent lead singer. I didn't sing, but I did all the stories through body movement. And we had San Diego's biggest rock promoter as our manager, so we opened for different groups. Fleetwood Mac was our big one, so it was quite unusual for a mime artist to be playing to 14,000 people in the San Diego sports arena. And so Marcel called me the rock and roll mime. And I kind of broke some bounds by having a band and being musical instead of just a mime.
It's a whole different thing, and it's probably hard for younger folks who might be watching or listening to Don McLeod, our guest on the Big Time Talker podcast with our friends at Headline Books, his new book, Gorilla Tales, a memoir. For the younger folks to imagine kind of how big mimes were there in the 70s. You just talked about the first time you got to interact with Marceau in a big way. He was playing the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, which seats thousands, right?
Yes.
And then there were, network TV specials. And I remember as a kid seeing Shields and Yarnell do mime and all that. So much like, Evel Knievel in the 1970s, it was of a place and time where it was extraordinarily big. And you were kind of swept up into that. Do you remember it being kind of a big deal at the time?
Yes, it was. I started when I graduated theater school. I thought, well, where do I do shows? So I put together a 50-minute show with my band, sometimes solo, and we did high schools and colleges. And on weekends when the weather was good, I worked in Balboa Park in San Diego and just met people one-on-one. And we would have anywhere from 100 to maybe 250, 300 people watching me do mime in the street. And it was at the same time that Robert Shields from Shields and Yarnell was working in Union Square, and he became the darling of Herb Caen from the San Francisco Chronicle, and things went up. And we both had the same manager at the time, so we were kind of I remember we were a little competitive, and Robert always said, you were very good, but he said, I'm going to be more famous than you, because he said, I'm a businessman and you're not.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I kind of went,
There's a
all right.
little
I said,
rivalry there between
yeah,
you.
it was rivalry. And I thought there's no, it wasn't exactly like Mike Tyson squaring off with somebody in a reunion ring, but we're still respectful and friends of each other. And Robert was, besides Marcel Marceau, he was the most famous mime in the world, really. I felt
No matter how big the rivalry is, if it's two mimes, you're never going to have a shouting match. So that's
no.
never going to.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was big then. It's not big now. Any theories as to why?
Yes, mine fell on kind of rough times because a lot of people that were wannabe mimes didn't really study. They didn't know the techniques. And so they just slapped some makeup on and jumped out in the street and followed people. And they tried to do what, I was doing performance pieces with beginning, middle, and end, full stories. And Robert was very much, Robert Shields, that is, was very interactive with people. And he was so wonderfully spontaneous and bold as could be. And so I think what happened was a lot of obnoxious people without training went to the streets and thought they could make a quick buck, and they really became an irritant. And a lot of people reacted to that who were in the business making commercials and movies, and they said, we're going to put a mime in there, and what's a mime going to let's get even with that guy that followed us in Westwood, and made fun of us. And there's, Cirque du Soleil uses wonderful clown-like mimes. I was invited to join the original Cirque du Soleil company back in, early 80s, I guess it was. And I was going to have to travel around and make $300 a week and sleep with Stinky the Clown. And I kind of thought, I've got it pretty good with what I'm doing here. I know Cirque du Soleil would have been exciting, but I never wanted to be a clown, and I never wanted to run away and join the circus.
Although the opportunity was given to you.
Yes.
Don McLeod is our guest today. The book Gorilla Tales, and you see a gorilla head over Don's shoulder there if you happen to be watching the video. If you're listening to our Big Time Talker podcast, you can find the video replay on the Headline Books Facebook page, and you can see what we're talking about. And if you'd like to pick up Don's book, it's available now at Amazon.com and bookstores everywhere. Folks are chiming in with comments and questions. One of them is from Al Delago, who says that to tell you hello and that they loved you at Expo 74. What was Expo 74?
Expo 74 was the World's Fair in Spokane, Washington. For 6 months, I was the resident mime with my company. So I had two dear friends of mine, my ex-partner, Macarena, as in dance. We were together a long time. She was our leading lady, and Mark Wenzel, my longtime friend, was the other mime, and he's still a professional mime working here in LA. And Al used to come as the little boy, and his favorite thing was to watch and interact with the mime troupe. And so that's how I met Al, and he, all these years later, and then when Facebook showed up, somehow he punched in Don the Mime guy from Expo 74, and we're now friends and Facebook buddies, and we, that's the power of Facebook and the internet.
That's amazing. Very good. Al, thank you for chiming in. If you have a question or comment for our guest, Don McLeod, today, send it in our chat room. Let's talk about your transition to wearing the suit that became your calling card for, amazingly, over 3 decades now. How is it that you became the American Tourister gorilla? And we'll remember those commercials if you're of a certain age, because they were everywhere and it seemed like they were on TV all the time. How did that happen for you?
Yes, I had done a gorilla in my mime class. It would have been 1979, I guess. So someone saw me in this and they recommended me, and I was in a really bad B movie that was never released, but I write about that experience in Gorilla Tales, because it was, I had to fight all these animals and so forth. But that was my first suit gorilla job. We shot it up in Big Bear. It was called the Galactic Connection, and it was, it didn't really have anything to do with the galaxy or any connection to anything.
Not well named.
No, it wasn't. And I fought a grizzly bear. I fought a trained buffalo. I fought all kinds of wild animals in it, and I did all the stunts and survived. So it was a very fun project to get me started. But that led up to, in 1980, American Tourister had used a real gorilla. I think his name was Willie Bobo, and he was actually a large chimp. And he didn't work out, and so they decided, well, we need to redo this, because they'd done that in 1970 with the chimp. And then they said, this is 1980, they said, we're going to redo and bring back the idea of a primate. So let's do a gorilla. So they said, where do we get a gorilla? So they had an audition, they had stuntmen show up, and the stuntmen were full of bravado and amazing stunt ability, but they weren't trained as movement artists or an actor like I was. So they were not finding the right person. And so the gentleman, Oscar-winning Rick Baker, who created many, many amazing characters and gorillas, was hired to build the gorilla. And at the last minute, they called him. They said, Rick, this isn't working out. None of these stunt guys are working. He said, well, I know a guy named Don McLeod. He lives near me. And why don't you see him? And they said, gosh, it's like 20 minutes to 6. We're closing the auditions at 6. And so Rick called me and he said, Don, if you can get over to Universal Studios in the next 15 minutes, you might have a chance at this. So I just threw everything in the air, raced over there, made it about 5 minutes to 6, and the casting lady's on her phone, not even listening. I ran in, I said, I'm the guy from Rick Baker's shop. I'm the mime guy, I'm the gorilla guy. Maybe I'd love to do it. And they said, she rolled her eyes and spun away and picked up a phone call. And the guy filming the audition said, okay, do your thing quickly. We got to go. I did my gorilla as fast as I could without a suit, just me jumping around. Then I noticed the casting lady was not looking. She was on the phone talking and smoking a cigarette and not even watching the audition. She could watch the tape later, but I thought, I got to get her attention. So I went off camera and ran up, and I guess they followed me with the camera, and I jumped up on her desk, went, and I took the phone out and went, clicking, and I hung it up. And then I pulled her head down, and I'm looking through her hair for bugs and eating mimed fleas out of her hair. And then I took her papers and threw them off her desk and jumped off the desk and just went, and then went steaming out, and it was gone. And I thought, I'll never hear from them again, but at least they're going to remember me. So I went home and put a pizza in the oven and started watching the Laker game. And the phone rang, and it was the casting department from American Tourister Luggage. And the head of the department said, is this Don McLeod? I said, yes. And he said, well, we loved your audition. I go, thanks. I guess I kind of went a little too crazy there at the end. And he said, no, that's exactly what we're looking for, a gonzo gorilla that's potentially out of control. You've got the job.
Wow.
And I thought it would be one day of work in New York and get the job and get a session fee and be done. And it became like a 16-year, sometimes on, sometimes off. We did 10 commercials for the company and won some awards, and I became a professional gorilla thinking there would be one day of work.
You know, I tell people you have to be open to opportunities wherever they come, and you are an extreme example of being open to whatever comes your way. The premise of those commercials, if I remember correctly, and it has been a few years, was that American Tourister Luggage could stand up to an enormous beating, no matter what happened, even the kind of beating you would get from a gorilla. Am I remembering that sort of correctly?
Absolutely correct, Burke. They wanted to create the idea that the luggage was indestructible. And so that was, the first one we did was called Hotel. And it was me kicking the suitcases down the back stairs. And then I'm the gorilla and the suitcase tumbling on the stairs. And then it cuts to the lady who is waiting for her bag and the bellman. And the bellman opens the door and he's transformed into a human bellman. And I'm the bellman as the gorilla, and we both have a little bellman's cap on. Bellman, yeah, bellman. And so the door opens and she takes the suitcase, and then I sort of smile and I'm kind of like waiting for a tip, and she gives me a banana. And then that was that commercial, and it took off and was very popular. The next one, basically, because it took off and became pop. Yeah, here we are. We're seeing on the screen on the left side with the bellman's cap. That was the first commercial, and it won a Clio, which was the equivalent of like a Grammy or an Oscar, I guess, for the advertising agencies. And then that's me in New York with one of New York City's finest escorting me around Manhattan. I think it's Fifth Avenue, if I'm not mistaken. But
so you walk down Fifth Avenue in a gorilla suit. I would imagine there are looks that go with that.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was every time they kept me in Los Angeles. I guess they didn't want me to get too familiar, but they would fly me in. And the home of American Tourister was in Warren, Rhode Island, and so they would fly me into New York, where our advertising agency was, and they would plan out how to get publicity and just crazy things. And I think I told this story maybe to you before, but the gorilla got a lot of trouble because Ralph Nader had seen the gorilla commercials where the ape, this was a different one, and the gorilla's jumping in the suitcases as a baggage handler in the airport. So he said, oh, there's no way those suitcases would really hold up to a gorilla, jumping on them. So he was a consumer advocate person for those people under 50 who might not remember Ralph Nader.
Yes.
But he was a good guy, essentially, but he was challenging, false pretenses. So they took the American Tourister gorilla, they being Ralph Nader's television show crew, to, I think, to the Miami Zoo, and they threw the suitcase in for Willie Bobo, or whoever he was called at the time. The real gorilla in the zoo went, he tore the suitcase in half in about 10 seconds, and then went over and filled the lid with water, and was like blowing fart bubbles into the water. And they said, see, we won the Tourister false advertising. Suitcase can't stand up to a gorilla. So they went into a panic. They said, Don, you're done. Thanks. Great couple of commercials, but we're doomed. We got a fold up operation. So I said, how about if I go on the various television shows with the $50,000 gorilla costume and the suitcases, and say, no one ever said a real gorilla would not be able to tear the suitcase in half. I'm a 150-pound actor in a really good costume, and the suitcases are really strong. And I'll show you right now, and it worked. So the owner of Tourister, a man named Dan Hillenbrand, fascinating guy. He thought there's three things that happen in life. You're born, so you need to go to the hospital. You die, and you need a casket. So he started a casket company and a hospital bed company. And then he said, in between, you got to get away, so you travel. So what do you need? A suitcase. So his third company was American Tourister Luggage. And he had Batesville casket and hospital bed furniture. And I fit in. So he was pretty much out there he was like Al Davis of the Raiders as an owner. He liked controversy, and I got in trouble a couple of times. Once involving Disney on Parade. We were both booked at the same Cherry Hill, New Jersey shopping mall, and I decided all of the little happy-go-lucky Disney characters, Minnie and Mickey and Goofy, weren't gonna get a step up on the tough guy American Tourister gorilla, so I had a face-off with them. And it didn't go well. I made the mistake of sort of like the family dog romancing Minnie's leg in one moment, and then Goofy came over and kicked me, and then Mickey jumped on me, and we had a brawl between Mickey, Minnie, Goofy, and myself. And it got on the news and went kind of there was no internet at the time, but there was the AP and various other
UPI. I would pay good money to see that video of you mixing it up with Disney characters.
Yeah. So they said, "Oh, this is not good." And the press company, the PR firm that was handling it, said, "We wanted you to be Gonzo, but this has gone too far." There was like me molesting Minnie Mouse. And they said, "We may have to let you go." And they said, "We're going to have to talk to Dan Hillenbrand, the owner, and just stand by." And they said, "This isn't the image we want for the Tourister gorilla. He's out, Disney is an iconic brand, and, we've gone too far, Don." I said, "Okay, I'm so sorry. I just thought you wanted me to be fully in control wherever I went, and the take no prisoners, Gonzo gorilla strikes again." They said, "Yes, but not with an icon like Minnie Mouse and fighting Mickey and Goofy." Oh,
You may have gone a little too far there. I'm just saying.
I think you're saying it right, Bert.
If we look at you on the screen, we see a gorilla head behind you. We see, pictures of you all through the book, by the way, Gorilla Tales. You'll see lots of amazing photos of Don in his costume, I guess you call it.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the suit itself. How do you get in it? How do you get out of it? How hot is it in there? How much does the thing weigh?
Yeah, it originally, the one you're seeing the pictures on the screen, the Rick Baker designed gorilla suit weighed about 50 pounds. And it was mainly heavy because there was a lot of heavy, like car bumper type rubber in the long arms. You're seeing in this one picture, I'm pointing at something that isn't there. The short arms and the long arms are different. The long arms they're locked off permanent, and they were for knuckle walking. The short arms were for grabbing suitcases and Minnie Mouses and things. They were like hands. So you start with that suit, and then the one I have now is a little different. It has a muscle suit underneath. So it's a spandex suit with foam padding inside to create the shapes of muscles. So you put on clean underwear first, then the muscle suit, and then it's one piece. So it zippers in the back. So you open up the back. It takes one or two people to get you in it. And
you have to have help to get in the thing.
Pardon me?
You have to have help to get in there.
Yes, we do. I have my friend who now plays the gorilla, and he did a couple of American Tourister print ads. Adam Mayer, he's my good friend and my gorilla protege. And so that's how we start. The last thing is the head. And the head, the nose, lips, and eyebrows are controlled by animatronic radio controls, like you'd fly a little model airplane or a little race car, and it's got a little joystick on it, and a puppeteer operates that. And then the mouth opens and shuts with a chin strap, a chin cup underneath that I, or Adam now, can move inside the gorilla head. So we can open and close the mouth, and the lips can curl up, it can smile or pucker and blow kisses, and sniff with independent nostril movement, and eyebrows can go up and down for anger or surprise or quizzical. And because the gorillas use a lot of commercials, and it's often required to have kind of more expressive facial expressions than a real gorilla would have, but it's pretty close to a real gorilla. So I can put it on. You want me to pop the head just so you see what it looks like?
Do I? Yes, I do, Don McLeod.
Watch this. Glass is coming up. Now I'm blind, but sometimes it's a good thing.
You're
Now
probably
we don't
blind
have
when you have
the
that thing on,
radio
too.
controls hooked up. I didn't get time to find them actually because I'm so chaotic here during the pandemic that I couldn't find the radio controls. But we start like this, and normally you block out the eyebrows, and then I have brown scleral contact lens. They're bigger irises than a human, but I have blue eyes, so you'll see. So you wouldn't see the pink here with something called rubber mask makeup, but this is.
This might quite possibly be the strangest interview I've ever conducted.
Yeah, so that's how we get on, and once with the black contact lens and their big lens, they're like putting quarters in your each eye. They're very uncomfortable, but they match the shape of a gorilla's eyeballs. And quite a bit. The teeth are sculpted from dental acrylic, just like when you get false teeth at the dentist. They make them, and they have a mold. So that's the basis of it. And you breathe in your own carbon monoxide. Are you hearing me okay?
Well, I mean, it sounds like you have a gorilla head on, but other than that, yes.
So you get the point. So that's kind of how that works. There's no repairing myself.
Does he have a name? Does the gorilla suit have a name?
Well, it depends on the project that he's currently. Pull myself together here. The project, I like to call him just generically Gonzo the gorilla, but he was Atlas the gorilla when I was Atlas Moving Van, the Atlas Van Lines gorilla for a while. I was been Willie the gorilla, and sometimes Hey You the gorilla. No,
So there was no gorilla exclusivity with American Tourister. You could be a gorilla for someone else then.
Well, I couldn't do any competitive stuff, but I was able to do, for example, movies and things. So the producers of the movie Trading Places, you're probably going to ask me about that, but they saw the commercials and they said, well, we need a gorilla in Trading Places. And I'm not sure if it was actually in the original script. I think it was, but they had a bad Halloween suit in, there it is. So the bad Halloween suit is Jim Belushi, John Belushi's quite well-known brother.
Really?
And then I'm the quote-unquote real gorilla behind this shot with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd there.
So that was Jim Belushi in the bad suit.
Yes.
Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd, and you.
Correct.
So, and by the way, that's one of my all-time favorite movies, and I'm not sure what that says about me. Probably not good things.
No, I didn't.
That movie slays me every time I see it. And now that I've interviewed you, I'm going to look at it in a whole different way. You've done a bunch of movies with a bunch of big stars, and I'm curious as to what that interaction is like with an Eddie Murphy or a Dan Aykroyd or Steve Martin or whoever you're doing a movie with. Are they respectful of you? Do they see you as sort of a prop? What's it like?
They were very respectful because the gorilla, especially at the time, I think the suit was about $35,000. It would be now. I just talked to my friend. We've redone the suit. I have a different suit now, but that suit is about $50,000. But they said if they went and redid the suit, it would be probably $80,000 now. They were very respectful because the costume was so good and everyone knew the commercial. And I'd been on the Today Show, as you see in the picture, with Jane Pauley.
Yeah.
And that really made me kind of somebody that even celebrities were going, "Hey, I want a picture with the gorilla. I want to meet him." You know, I've met lots of famous actors, but I haven't met a famous gorilla. So I was in my own kind of sphere, and because I did so many promotional TV shows and interview shows, everybody maybe had caught me, or they saw a newspaper article or the Ralph Nader challenge, and then heard that American Tourister was still going because I had come up with the idea of showing the suit and explaining that it was still strong luggage, even though the real gorilla could tear it apart. And so working with stars, they were wanting a picture with me, which I thought, this is funny. You know, here I am with like Eddie Murphy or Steve Martin and Man with Two Brains, other movies I did, and I found these opportunities were pretty interesting. But in my book, I did a lot of projects that were not big. I talk about the famous movies that I was in and the behind the scenes stories and stuff, but there was a lot of little stuff. Like I did a promotion in Springfield, Illinois for Wagner Mazda, and they were having guerrilla warfare with the Toyota dealership and other dealerships across the street and in the area. So they said, all right, we're going to go across the street, buy a brand new Toyota pickup, bring it onto the Mazda lot, and hire Don to stand on top of the Toyota pickup with a sledgehammer and destroy the competition in his gorilla suit. And my agent at the time got me the job. He said, sounds good, I'll do it. So for a weekend, I was the Wagner Mazda sledgehammer welding gorilla, taking on all the competition.
See, that's the best. Those are the kinds of stories that I love because, yeah, you're going to get the big high-profile stuff, but the other stuff is even more interesting. You're out in the real world, mixing with the real people, but doing it in a gorilla suit.
Absolutely. It was so fun.
What happens, and forgive me for those of you with a sensitive stomach who might be watching or listening, what happens if you have to go to the bathroom in the suit? Because it looks like it's a whole thing to get in that. So it's probably a whole production to get out of that.
Yes. You need your assistant or someone who can figure out how to take a 22-inch long zipper up and down without catching the gorilla hair in it, and then peel you out of it. And because it's one-piece suit, you have to, if you're in a hurry, there's no way you can quickly go. On Trading Places, we had a standby Pepsi bottle, giant Pepsi bottle, and I recall we had to go, I really got to go. And they said, Don, we're on hold. We've got to shoot. We're just doing touch-up makeups on Eddie. It'll be a minute. I said, you don't understand. I've been drinking water and I've been in the suit for 2.5 hours. I got to go. I think I can hold it a little bit. And they go, okay. And they said, here. And they poured out give me the Pepsi bottle, and they pulled the suit off and turned around, and I managed to manipulate myself into the Pepsi bottle, and they kind of took it away and were appalled by it. But it allowed me to stay in the suit and be on the set.
Was there ever a time, because I've been in movie sets before, where exactly what you said happens because they've got to get a lot of stuff just right to roll. The sound's got to be right. The light has to be right. And so there's a lot of waiting around for that exact moment. Has there ever been a time, I hate to ask you this, but I'm gonna because it's my job. Has there ever been a time when, you didn't make it out of the suit in time?
Yes, there has. And I'm glad you asked.
Are you really glad that I asked, or are you just saying that?
No, I'm not saying it. I love to explore the dark side of ape acting. So I'm in Vancouver, Canada on Teenage Ninja Turtles. And they have a guest segment with the gorilla. And they're just about to film a scene. And I've been in the suit for 8 hours. We started at 7 in the morning, and this is now about 5 o'clock. I'm not good at math.
And you're on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles set, and you're a gorilla in the movie.
I have to pee in the worst way. Okay. I don't have a dresser because the dresser was dressing the turtles and me. So there's nobody there. And I said, I have to go. And I said, I'll be right back. And all we had was a trailer. I had a little trailer, and the doors are about 16 inches wide in a Winnebago. And even a large human has to kind of negotiate themselves to get through the door. So I got someone to unzip me, and they said, hurry back, Don, they're waiting for you, just go. And I got in, and I thought, uh-oh. And I got the suit open, and I pull it down, I pull the arms down like this, and it's one piece, as I said, and there's the under padding too. So there's this big belly and the chest, and I'm pulling the front of the suit down, and I thought, I can't stand up because the suit is sort of folded in front of me, so I have to go backwards to, like I'm sitting on, doing number 2 on the little tiny toilet. So I get myself situated, and I sit back, and I go, and I drank, you have to think, I've had consumed about 8 or 10 bottles of water. So I'm sitting there and I go, oh man, my bladder's like the size of an NBA basketball. And I go, and I peed for what seemed like 3-4 minutes. I didn't hear anything, but you don't really, because those toilets are shaped different. There's no splash sound. So I go, now I'm able to live. And I pulled up the suit and I put my arms back in it, and I pull up. And then I feel this warm sensation. And I realized that when I'd sat on the toilet backwards, I'd folded the padding of the belly under me. So I basically urinated into my own gorilla belly.
Oh my.
Padding. And I walked, so I had about 2 quarts of gorilla pee in my foam padding and down the legs of the suit. And they said, Don, we're waiting. I said, I'm coming. And I thought, this is just horrible, because I got all of this body fluid in my suit. So I walk into the set, and I'm starting to leave footprints of moisture. So basically gorilla piss footprints behind me, and they said, what the hell, did you walk through a puddle or something? And yeah, I was a puddle.
That right there, that's the glamour of showbiz they never tell you about, you know?
Right. So that was a end of story there, and didn't end well.
Yeah, I'm thinking at some point you might transition over to Depends when you have the suit on. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it all depends on the movie I'm in, I guess.
Have you ever, because it's hot in there, oh God, I can't even imagine the smell of that suit afterwards. Because what you said, it's a 50-pound suit, and you got the headgear on, and you're drinking lots of water because you're sweating. You ever pass out in that thing?
Yes, 3 times. Specifically cold. The worst one was on a movie called Tanya's Island with Prince's early on girlfriend Vanity was the co-star, and I was the primate star of it. And it was a bad movie with a really good beast suit made by my friend Rob Bottin, who also is an Oscar winner for Total Recall, which I worked on that too. But anyway, I passed out in this suit and ended up in a Puerto Rican hospital with waking up, and we were 50 miles away from the nearest hospital, and so I was pretty much out the whole time. I just lost too much fluids, and they had to pump me full of glucose and heart stimulants. And
that would have been a great name for a chapter in the book. I woke up in a Puerto Rican hospital.
Yeah, that whole story is there. It was a good one. Another bad movie that had good opportunities.
Vanity was cute, though. I mean, there were worse people to spend days on a bad movie set with than Vanity.
Yeah, and she rarely had on anything besides a loincloth and a string of beads. So
see, I think there will be a lot of people who are watching or listening to the interview right now who will be on IMDb looking that movie up after this interview.
It's a bad movie, but I like to think that my performance as the beast And it was a Beauty and the Beast theme. So she has a drug-induced dream, supposedly, as a model from Toronto, and she falls into a delirious state and then wakes up in her dream in Puerto Rico with me. I was called Blue because I have blue eyes, and they didn't want to spend the money for the contact lens. So I just call them Blue. Hey, don't worry about the contact lens. And so the suit was kind of, I think we have pictures in the book. There might have even been one up there earlier, but so it was a triangle between her boyfriend and me, and she falls in lust with the gorilla and vice versa, and then her boyfriend it's a whole love triangle. It's really ridiculous. But
I can't imagine why that didn't pick up an Academy Award that year, but nonetheless, we may have to check it out online. You kind of blew through. You were in Total Recall with Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, I was the head puppeteer on Total Recall, the first one, not the remake.
Yeah, the one with Arnold, yeah.
Yeah, 2000 or whenever it was.
What kind of guy was he? Was he a cool guy?
Yeah, he was cool. He would kind of go, okay, go, I got to go. I need Dolly have a cigar ready. And, Arnold was kind of like a truck out of control, steamrolling through everything. But, he was nice to me. I was just basically operating like the Johnny Cab. That was the robot, like.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Quaid. Thank you, Mr. Quaid. Thank you, Mr. Quaid. And then Quato was the little creature that lived in the belly of the Martian guy. And open your mind, Mr. Quaid. And I, along with my team, I had a team of movement artists from LA. It was actually some solid gold dancers and people with good hand-eye body coordination. And we were puppeteers called in at the last minute to make all this stuff happen. On the screen now, you're seeing, this is my friend Macarena's house in Beverly Hills. And these are two supermodels that I had my own gorilla greeting card line, and they were hired to pretend they liked the gorilla and float around in this Beverly Hills swimming pool.
You made money doing that. I just want to stop there for a moment for those of us who have had blue-collar jobs and think Don McLeod made money posing with supermodels in a pool in Beverly Hills in a gorilla suit.
Bingo. I'll take the job.
Amazing. And there's a young Don with Marcel Marceau. Very cool. Although with all this stuff, and maybe I'm reading into this the wrong way, but there was a photo we saw earlier of you at a county fair. It almost sounds as if, to hear you talk, the most enjoyment you've got is by being not in movie sets and not in Beverly Hills, but being out in the real world and interacting with real people with that suit on.
Yes, that's right, Burke. It really was. The movies were usually high pressure and somewhat chaotic, and you'd get in the suit and they'd say, okay, we'll get right to you, Don. And 3 hours later, I'm dying in the suit, and they're going, we'll be right with you. You're a real trooper. Hang in there, buddy. And like the man with two brains was because David Warner, the actor behind Steve Martin in the photo, had a full page and a half of dialogue, and he didn't remember any of it. So he kept going 3 lines in, he said, oh, I'm sorry, oh, Don, I know you're dying in the suit there. I'll get it this time. They did 42 takes of this you're seeing, and he kept apologizing to me, and Steve Martin was a pro. He'd just, kind of roll his eyes and go, hopefully David Warner, wonderful British actor, by the way, David Warner. He was in the movie Morgan, where he actually wore a gorilla suit and rode a bicycle around in London. He was kind of a dysfunctional guy, but that was one of the movies I loved with people in gorilla suits. I forgot the question.
Did you get most of those calls for, did you become the go-to guy for a while? Now we need a gorilla. Let's call Don McLeod. Because there are movies, as I think we actually have a comment here, that calls for that occasionally. The Tarzan movies, or there was George of the Jungle. Were you the go-to gorilla there for a minute?
Yes, to some degree. I would say I was. I auditioned and didn't get. I was cast in George of the Jungle, and then they cut down. They didn't I think they only had 4, and they originally wanted 5. I was the 5th one that I heard about the audition, went to it, and they said, "Oh, yeah, we'd love to have you." And then they cut it out of they even built a suit that still exists in some special effects person's back closet somewhere. Then I, did, for 6 months, I lived in Johannesburg and Sun City in South Africa. I was the resident gorilla and monster in Tarzan, the Epic Adventures. Tarzan was Joe Lara, and I was a bunch of monsters that required my mime and movement stuff. And then the gorilla suits were pretty funky in that series. They were built by a fellow named John Beekler, who was, he did things on the cheap, and it looked like it. They were bad.
There was no Rick Baker gorilla suit, is what
No,
you're saying.
these were like even, Aborigines in the darkest of jungles in somewhere would go, and they go, "Bad gorilla suit." So, yeah, they were bad, but the series was 22 episodes, and I was in 12 of them as various monsters, and the gorilla was in a lot of them too. So,
and you've been at this long enough now to see CGI come into movies. Has that negatively impacted your ability to do some of this cool stuff? Like you talked about as the head puppeteer and Total Recall and the gorilla suit stuff. Is there less call for those kinds of things now with CGI, or has that not affected it?
Yeah, no, the CGI big time knocked a lot of great practical effects artists, both designing the costumes and what we would call suit performers or actors in costumes. We were replaced by digital people and digital costumes, but some of the things they combine both, so there is still work, but there's countries that don't really have VFX effects people. So, for example, Turkey, we've done 3 projects in Turkey. We've done a commercial in Uruguay. We've done stuff in Mexico City. I mean, they do have some special effects, but those are places that maybe don't have a gorilla suit. So they will, go on the internet and go gorilla costume, movie style gorilla. And I come up pretty high up, and then we send our suit that we now have to wherever. So we get some, but with the pandemic, we're like everybody else. I'm sitting in my pajama bottoms at home, and but as a writer, it's kind of okay because I've been able to write, and that doesn't require a costume, So.
And you can hear all these stories in Don's writing in the book Gorilla Tales, a memoir. I find it fascinating that you've arrived at this point in your career where, and I may not be saying this correctly, but you have a gorilla understudy. So you personally don't necessarily get into the suit as much anymore. You have the suit and you send another gorilla out in the suit. That's
correct. I have a guy who's exactly my height, and we just for the heck of it got weighed the other day because I had lost my bathroom scale. That's how disorganized I am. Not too many people say, yeah, there's so much junk in my house that I lost a full-size bathroom scale, but I did. I found I'd put it under the couch because I kept stepping on it rather than getting weighed. We dragged it out, and both my partner or protege, fellow Adam Mayer, and I are 5'7", 168.33 pounds. So yes, he fits it, and he's 30 years younger than me, so he's able to take the heat, and he loves the heat because he was born in he was born, I think, actually in Tel Aviv, and he's from Hungary, but he likes the heat.
And when you say, he can take the heat, you mean literally can take the heat of being inside a gorilla suit.
Yeah, we've had cooling suits. There's things you can plug in that pump ice water through you intermittently on a timer, and then there's ice vests that are frozen. You put them on under the muscle suit, and he doesn't want any of that. He said, I like to just feel the heat. And he was in every scene in a feature film that was done in Turkey. year and a half ago, and it was plenty hot there in Turkey in the summer. It was about high 90s and very humid, and he got what he wanted. But he liked.
Has it ever crossed your mind that you guys, you've been doing for years what the rest of us have learned how to do in the last 6 months, and that's wear a mask? I mean, you had a head start on this. You know what to do.
Yeah, you just pull it on and stay calm.
And you must think quite often, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but stop belly aching about wearing a little piece of paper on your mouth because I've got a big animatronic head that I have to pull on and a 50-pound suit, right?
Yes, that is a consideration. I hear people complaining about it, but then they would be justified to say, well, nobody's, sending me residuals in the mail for wearing my my 3M mask, into Costco. So,
That's again amazing to think that you have mailbox money for wearing a gorilla suit for the last 3 decades.
Yeah, I just opened the mail the other day, and I got a check for 79 cents because Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, which I was a resident gorilla for several shows on that show, aired in like Vietnam or something. So Vietnamese kids are watching me chase around Sheena.
Don't spend all that in one place. That's 79 cents.
I've already put it in the bank and made a penny interest.
Unbelievable. What as we wrap it up here with Don McLeod, what do you want to be remembered for? What's going to be on your tombstone someday?
That's a good one. I haven't really figured that out yet, because it's kind of a final thought. Maybe I could keep it open. I could change it, but I think
because you still have mountains to climb. This may not be it. There may be another really weird detour.
I hope so.
As he mimes it up there.
Yes. Yeah, I think there'll be some more stuff, and I'm really excited about the writing. There's enough stories for a Gorilla Tales 2 or Son of Gorilla Tales or something. We'll see how this does, but the stories I think there's a television show, or for each chapter is a separate, self-contained. There's 19 chapters, and it's kind of about the boy who took a chance and nobody thought that it would make any sense. My acting teacher said, "Don't do mime." And what do you mean you want to be you're in a gorilla? Say, that's stupid, And I bought the house I'm in now with gorilla residuals. So
you got to be open to wherever life takes you. And Don McLeod, you're probably the only person on the planet that can say, I bought the house I'm in now because of gorilla suit residuals. There may be no one else that can say that. The book is exactly, in my opinion, what we need during this crazy year that we've had. If you're taking some time off during the holidays, and I hope you can, pick up a copy of Gorilla Tales, a memoir, My Life as a Professional Primate, and check out of the real world and check into the amazing, imaginative world of mime and gorilla suit auteur Don McLeod. You can actually get an autographed copy at headlinebooks.com. That's headlinebooks.com as part of their holiday extravaganza. Book also available at amazon.com, wherever books are sold. But if you want a personally autographed copy from Don McLeod, pick it up at headlinebooks.com. That's Gorilla Tales, a memoir. Don, it was great spending this hour with you. Amazing stories. I encourage everybody to pick up the book. Thank you, sir. Happy holidays.
You're the best, Burke. I love talking to you. Thank you. And
You're very welcome. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to our Big Time Talker podcast. Thank you to our sponsor, Speaker Match. I'm Burke Allen in Washington, D.C. Wherever you go, whatever you do today, make it a great day. Bye, everybody.